who has broken up with somebody 6 months or less ago, they're not likely to have gotten over that. And one of the red flags is as soon as they start talking about their ex unprovoked, and unprovoked means you didn't ask them about their ex, you didn't ask them about past relationships. You're just sitting there hanging out, and then for some reason they not decide to start talking about their ex. That means they're not over their ex, which means that you're not going to have a fun ride. You need to figure out what you're going to do about that. But for today's topic, during that breakup, it can feel like your entire world has tilted off its axis, and you can't even imagine what the path forward looks like, especially for those of you who have deliberately made future plans where your entire future has that person in it. Every decision that was going to be made, every adjustment that was going to be made, every long term goal that was going to be achieved was all based on the presence of the person that's no longer there. If you're feeling lost, confused, and just completely heartbroken, remember you guys are in the right place. This isn't just another podcast with a generic get over it advice scenario. That's not what we're about. It's more than just getting over it. You got to think of this as your survival guide because we're going to walk you through this together. And by the end, you should have real practical steps to not just get through this, but to come out on the other side stronger than you've been before. All right. And before we get into how, we have to make sure that we talk about the why because it's always intuitive to talk about how you can heal, but we need to talk about why. And why does this hurt so badly? Why does it feel like a physical injury, a real ache in your chest that just won't go away? You got to understand the first step to feeling better is understanding that your pain is valid. So you're not being dramatic. You're not overreacting. And you're going to have a decent friend group that's not decent that might tell you that you're overreacting, that you're carrying on too long about it, that you're being dramatic about the situation. And that's not necessarily the case because it doesn't matter how long the relationship was, whether it was 2 or 3 weeks or 2 or 3 years. You may still need 3, 6 months more to get over that. Your brain and your body are having a massive response to a major loss, and knowing why can be incredibly empowering. So, first off, let's call this what it is. It's grief. A breakup triggers a true grief response, a lot like the one people feel after losing a loved one when somebody dies in your family. You aren't just mourning the person, you're mourning the future you imagined. So the little routines you shared, the inside jokes, and even the parts of yourself that were tied up with them. You got to understand that this grief often moves through a pattern that you might have heard of called denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Y'all got to go through them steps. Michael, Michael tripping. Okay, uh, Michael said you're whipped. Move on. Special shout out to Michael. Michael been coming through for a long, long time. Oh man. Uh, I I can't dive on that. I can't dive on that grenade. Normally, Michael, I co-sign with you. I do agree that you gotta let go, but I also have to tell you that for some people it's not that easy. And when we're the one falling on the emotional sword, we're not the one to be able to feel like it's time to just get over it and walk away. See, when we're single, when we're not going through a breakup, when we're married, when we're not going through a breakup, we don't have the emotional know-how to say, "Oh yeah, I know what that was like." No, instead we say, stop being a pussy. Get out there and get you another one. Stop, man up. Guys don't cry. That's what you hear. That's what you hear. But never does anyone say, I know it hurts. I know how it feels. And honestly, I've been there before. Even if I'm not going through it right now, I've been there before. Being able to empathize with the other person, not sympathy, empathize with them. That's when you find the true friends. But from a bro code kind of thing, stop being whipped, bro. Get out there and go get you another one. There's plenty of fish in the sea, and you're a shark. And that's how we used to do it back in the day. You know what they say. Uh, I'm trying to remember from Dara. Uh, fish are fins, not food. Shark time. You better get out there, get that ditty on. Go buy you a bunch of Jergens. Invest in the stock first, then go buy you a bunch of Jergens. Crazy. Get you some Johnson and Johnson and get out there and do it good. But that's how we motivate each other. But it's so important to know the stages aren't a neat checklist. The same way the 12 steps to recovery that they give you, it's not just a neat checklist. Special shout out to Yellow. He says ain't no party like a Diddy party until the feds kick the door in. Diddy still doing time. He went from 30 plus 1 years down to 20. They made it seem like he got off on all his charges. That man sitting in jail twice as long as Mystical. I'm trying to figure out. He didn't it 3 times longer than Bill Cosby. Him and Kelly gonna be singing duets together, and they sitting over there talking about some. Oh, he got off on the trafficking charges, right? But notice none of the charges he in there with, from what I understand, are drug charges. So why is he in there for 20 plus years, still holding sex offense charges from Diddy parties? I don't get it. You know. Back to the main relationship side. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe as y'all fly through here and utilize those reaction buttons, which I think are on this side of the screen, but it might be on this side of the screen because I don't know. The mirror image is flipped up, so I can't tell you which side of the screen it's on. Uh, the checklist to recovering from a breakup is messy. They all bleed into each other. And you might feel denial in the morning, rage by the afternoon, and crushing sadness by nightfall, only to wake up bargaining all over again. This happens in every relationship. Most men try to refuse to bargain. And you got to understand what bargaining is. Bargaining is also begging. Bargaining is when you're trying to rationalize with yourself to not end this relationship or why the relationship fell apart or if you can convince the other person to take you back. And then the begging comes from doing this exact same bargaining and rationalization with the person that's breaking up with you or that you broke up with. It's the exact same thing, just different words for it. Special shout out to Stephen from Twitter X. Yo, yo. Um, Next week, after we sell our ABR stock, we're going to be looking at 3 different stocks to choose from for the following week. So make sure that you're sliding in here because Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we're going to be talking a whole lot of money. And then I think because of that, because the 15th is supposed to be on like Friday and we're supposed to be selling on Friday, I will be talking to you guys about what we would be buying into the Monday after. So make sure that y'all stay through here. 3 different stocks to buy. Yeah, I'm telling you, bro. And they're back to back. So you're not going to be able to put one stack of cash on all 3 of them. You're either going to have to pick one or diversify your investment and buy a little bit into all 3 of them and get a little bit back off of each one of them and enjoy the ride. One of the two. But you're not going to be able to put all your money on one particular stock option in our dividend rotation strategy come next week. So this week we're buying into ABR. And then after we sell ABR next week, Friday, then we're going to be the following week diving into some other stock options. So make sure that y'all stay tuned for that. Now, denial is going to be the first one that we're talking about. Denial is your brain's first line of defense. It's a shield against shock. Now, denial works in a lot of scenarios. Denial works when your girlfriend's cheating on you. Denial works when the pastor's blessing you with the holy staff. Denial works when summer camp doesn't work the way it's supposed to work. Denial works when the uncle is too friendly. Denial is one of those situations that just happens to prevent you from going through the unexpected extreme shocks of life. That also builds trauma. So you got to understand this. Steven says my wallet has flies coming out of it. Man, you should have been invested. You made a bunch off of the JKS stock that I told you about in July, and I know that you was riding that wave with me on the Zim stock, so I know that you made bank off the Zim stock. So you got something available. You just got to redirect your capital during the dividend rotation strategy and put it towards some of the next stocks that we're investing in. A lot of times you make a bunch of money in the stock market, you don't even have to add more to it. You just got to re up. Michael says, denial in Egypt. why you think they why you think they called it denial? Because what? It's the denial river. As long as you walk your girlfriend up this river, she be lying the whole way through. You gotta stop halfway down the river and say, tell me the truth. Tell me the truth, Mary. It wasn't a blessing. The guy Zeus was from Mexico. Jesus' pappy was from Puerto Rico. Look now, we do go dark. Now, that denial, that shock, it's that little voice whispering that this is just a fight when you're breaking up with your spouse. And it tells you that they'll call. This can't really be over. It's a necessary buffer that gets your heart a second to catch up with reality when you already know that it is long since gone. You let her go backstage with Usher, it is over, bro. There is no recovery from that. You let her go backstage with Drake, it is over, bro. She in the VIP room with Chris Brown is over, bro. You just gotta let it go. Then comes the anger. This can be aimed at your ex for hurting you, at yourself for things that you did wrong, or just at the universe for being unfair. This could always be at yourself for not knowing that things was going wrong and not paying attention to it. Sometimes this anger is lashing out at your homeboys who tip you off that the situation is going south before you're ready to accept the fact that the situation is going south. And now you're going to have to deal with the embarrassment of going to apologize to your road dog for tipping you off that your partner wasn't as 100 as you thought they was, and your road dog forever tipped you off about it. You lashed out on them. They call that killing a messenger. But what you're doing is you're attacking the person that's telling you news you don't want to hear, and then you have to apologize to them to make up with them because they was looking out for your best interest. Sometimes this also happens with family, but we don't want to accept the information as true. Again, denial. Now, you might find yourself replaying the fights, zooming in on all their flaws and feeling a burning injustice. A lot of times, the women take this sometimes in ways harder than men. Men take this emotional distress excessively hard in comparison to women, but the lashing out part, I think women take that a little bit harder than men because more often than not, I have heard females explain that it is all the guy's fault. I rarely hear a woman step up and say, you know what, I screwed up in the relationship too. Or I was the one who screwed it up and be able to take first person accountability. It's usually something about the guy being insecure, something wrong with his childhood, his low self esteem, all this other stuff that deflects her individual responsibility. Every male and every woman in a relationship are equally responsible for their bad decisions in the relationship, their actions and their lack of action that leads to the failure of the relationship. Every man and every woman in the relationship. It takes two people to come together. It takes at least two people to fall apart, three or more when you start talking about affairs. And the fact is that if you two fell apart, it is both of your faults, not just one, because you contributed in some way, shape, or form. And I've said this before, and I had some women come and chew me out about it, and they were like, "Oh, you're an incel because you feel this way." And it's like, no, truthfully, tell me, you're either going to retaliate to negative behavior, which means that somebody else did something to you that made you do something back to them. So it's both of y'all's fault in that situation. You make a mistake, they make a mistake, y'all don't rectify the mistake. You're ignoring them, they're ignoring you. There's always a situation where there's two of y'all involved with the bad decisions. Michael says usually it's because you didn't perform in bed is what most relationships fall apart. Actually, that's not true, Michael. The most relationships fall apart over money fights. There's money fights. There's a lack of trust, typically stemming from the money fights. Then there's infidelity, and the infidelity also leads to lack of trust situations. Victims of past infidelity will be in new relationships, not recovering from past infidelity, showing lack of trust in their new relationship based on past trauma from an old relationship, and that destroys their new relationship, which also makes number four, past trauma, another reason why relationships fall apart. And all of these things revolve around a lack of communication. So, truthfully, the number one thing that destroys relationships is a lack of clear communication, clear, healthy communication, to be honest. But subtopic wise, it'll be money fights is the key one. Money fights, lack of communication. Then from the men's perspective, it is lack of validation, lack of reciprocation, and lack of consideration from the woman towards the man, where they devalue and degrade the man. From the woman's point of view, there's going to be like deception, lies, cheating, stuff to that effect. But usually devaluing a man, not respecting the man, not appreciating the man, not reciprocating to the man is going to be things that's going to make the man walk out of the relationship. In addition to infidelity, and there's infidelity where she's sleeping with somebody else, or there's infidelity where she's taking the money and going somewhere else with the money without his knowledge or consent with it. So those are situations that causes the breakups. Now, as scary as it feels, anger is an energizing emotion, but it's also a draining one. You can find yourself getting pumped up with rage and be able to perform. But as soon as you calm down, as soon as you let that rage go, you find yourself exhausted and you find yourself sleeping more after the fact. Michael says, how can you fight over something you didn't have, which is money? Easy. The same way you can fight over something you don't have, like food. Because if I don't have any and you don't have any, and I just so happen to come across some and I don't break you off in some low quality, low value relationships, they start fighting over the fact that extra resources was in there. You didn't share and you didn't say anything about it. It's almost like every post apocalyptic survival movie that has ever existed when the group is trying to preserve resources and somebody's holding out on extra resources. Everybody else who has less is pissed off because we're all supposed to be sharing, but you're hiding more than what the rest of us has got to share. That's how people fight over something that they don't have. It's crazy, but it's true. But you got to remember that anger is a sign that you're starting to recognize that you deserve better. You also have to understand that anger and frustration is your ability to understand that you're not being understood. Because typically we only get mad when we don't like the way we're being treated and we don't like the fact that nobody's listening. We're not being acknowledged and recognized. That's what frustrates us, right? Next up is the bargaining, the stage of what ifs. And I got to be honest with you guys. more than 9 months down the line, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, you might still be playing some of those what ifs in the back of your head and if onlys. If only I'd been more understanding. What if I promise I'll change? Can we just try again? All of these things are running through your head. I wonder, well, what if we bump into one another now after all of this time? Uh, if only we could reconcile and it'll be better the next time. But it never works. If you guys broke up the first time, especially when one or both of you refuse to accept your own individual first person accountability for the reason why the relationship fell apart, expressing and putting forth the effort to, in fact, change. If you're not doing that, if you guys got back together, you're going to be the same people that broke up the first time. The only difference is that the what ifs and only ifs is going to be, oh, I wish I could have done X, Y, and Z or said A, B, and C when situation A, B, and C was going down. Now the ways that they would have mic dropped you in a conversation, the ways that they would have elbow dropped you in a fight, the ways that they would have super kicked you in the public, that's going to be the ways they're going to do you the second time around. So the second time when you get back together with your ex is more volatile the second time than what it is the first time, because what they did not do the first time because they were afraid of how you were going to react. It is gloves off the second time, which means that you got to be careful with those getting back together. And you might even try to force a friendship way too soon, which usually just keeps the wounds from closing. And this is all about trying to find some control when you feel like you have none. And you should never be exes, you should never be friends with your ex. Because again, being friends with your ex's way of hovering around you to find an opportunity to get back with you. They're not fixing their shit. There's no reason for y'all to get back together, which means there's no reason for them to hang around you, because if they were toxic in the relationship, they're going to be toxic as a friend. That's also going to mean that they're going to sabotage your relationship, their emotional connection to you, and their inside knowledge of you is going to discourage your new boyfriend from getting to staying close with you, because this guy that's supposed to be your best friend who used to sleep with you for years knows more about your hidden tattoo than your boyfriend do. That's not cool. That's not cool. Michael says feelings are hurt and we love to carry them around. True. Even there 20 years ago, compartmentalizing the anger, or it will eat you alive. The problem with compartmentalizing, maybe you need to compartmentalize the anger, that is true. But the other problem with compartmentalizing is if you compartmentalize, suppress it, never address it, and then wait until a trigger occurs that causes that repressed feeling from 15, 20 years ago to have you explode on your current relationship, which is one of the reasons why I said 3 to 6 months out of a relationship, 9 months out of a relationship, too soon. You might want to wait, because the longer they've been out of their last traumatic relationship, the less likely they will be volatile in their current relationship with you. Now, when bargaining doesn't work and the loss really settles in, depression often follows. And this is the quiet, heavy sadness. Studies show that a breakup can negatively impact the mental health of 55% of people, and around 35% report feeling anxious or depressed. It's when you have no motivation, feeling empty, and can't find joy in things you used to love. You're also going to find this situation occur where you don't want to get out of bed, you don't have the energy to apply yourself to anything, and nothing entertains you anymore. One of the reasons why they say that the best things to get you started is to have an accomplishment such as making your bed, and then make your bed every day and then clean your room. Keep your room clean every day, iron your clothes. To start with little routines that have small accomplishments to help get you out of those ruts. then find you a routine. They're going to say find you a hobby. They're going to say, get involved with stuff. But some people overdo that because what they'll do is they will throw themselves into their work and drown themselves into their work, which does not work because you're replacing the relationship with an unhealthy level of employment. Oh boy, there's that thing again. Let's see if it crashes us again. I'll let you know. uh, so this is a deep and necessary part of grieving, where you finally start to process the full weight of what you've lost. And this is the part where people don't know what they've got until it's gone. Michael said, need to learn new copying skills, new coping skills. Yeah, well, okay. What we're supposed to be talking about today is going to include some unorthodox ways to cope. And this is going to help some people with getting through some of this, and then others are not going to want to hear it because they're still grieving. But then eventually comes acceptance. Now, acceptance doesn't mean you're suddenly happy. It just means you stop fighting the reality. Okay. It's the quiet acknowledgement that the relationship is over. And even though it hurts, you're going to be okay. It's the starting point where you're going to turn into a new person, where you're going to put your energy back into your own future, not into the future of somebody else. He says lotion and a towel. Well, lotion. Here's the funny part: the dopamine kick that you get from lotion and a towel does not always last long enough. It is a quick fix. It is a um short-term relief, but the endorphins that you release from that type of engagement, even if you were to do that with another person, the endorphins that you release is not going to be a long-lasting feeling, and you're going to be chasing that high the same way an addict would be chasing a high after getting a nice kick of some drugs. The fact is that you have to find another way, because by replacing that feeling with self gratification, you're going to be self gratifying for a long period of time. You're going to run out of reserves for self gratification, and then you're still going to fall back into that depression because you masked it by doing it. You only covered it up by doing it. Not saying that self gratification isn't a good thing. I'm just saying that self gratification cannot be the solution to this problem. And then assisted gratification is a whole lot more cardio. By all means, I'm not saying that assisted gratification isn't a bad thing. Happy endings are always highly promoted. It's just that one, they're going to cost more, and two, that could lead you to another emotional attachment, because the bonding gene that is released when you are self gratifying is the same bonding gene that you release when you are assisted gratifying, which is the same that you're going to be dealing with when you hook up with somebody else. So to detach with the other person, the bonding element from interaction will start creating a bond with the other person. Now, you don't have the ability to create a consistent bond with multiple one night stands, which is one of the reasons why at least guys go out there and sleep around and smash a bunch of girls, as opposed to girls going out there and trying to hook up with at least one or two guys. The emotionally dead scenario comes from people who try to kill their feelings by sleeping around with a bunch of other people. He said, remember to like and subscribe. He knows what's up. He knows what's he gotta get in here and ride the wave with us 7 nights a week, because I'm going to show you how to improve yourself, and then I'm going to show you how to improve your money. Now, on top of this emotional roller coaster, your body is having a very real psychological reaction. It's a physical reaction as well. The intense stress of a breakup can trigger your fight or flight response, flooding your body with stress hormones like cortisol. So that's why about 50% of people who experience a breakup report physical symptoms like fatigue and sleep disturbance. Your body is on high alert and it's exhausting. So here's something wild. Brain scans show that parts of your brain that light up during social rejection are the same parts that light up during physical pain. So when you say your heart literally hurts, you're not making it up. Your brain is treating this emotional wound like a real injury, like they really stabbed you in the chest, because that is how your brain is processing these emotions. Plus, love gives our brains a wonderful cocktail of chemicals like the dopamine and oxytocin. So when that's suddenly gone, like Michael said, replace it with your left hand. If you don't, you're going to be going through a kind of withdrawal, as I've explained, similar to an addict. So that obsessive thinking, the constant need to check their social media, where you're checking your ex's social media, the urge to call your ex, the urge to pop up at whatever location that you know that they're going to be at, you know, um, all of this is your brain desperately craving that chemical fix. Finally, a breakup can mess with your sense of self. In long term relationships, especially, our identities get tangled up with our partners. So I'm going to tell you that again. In long term relationships, especially, our identities will get tangled up with our partners. Special shout out to mixed martial arts. Uh, Hello. Hope you had a nice day. Yes, I had a pretty decent day. It was a very long and hot day. August is one of the hottest months out of the year now. It used to be June, but seasonal change has shifted the climate about 90 days. Spring happens in June and summer happens in August. Winter happens in January now. And it's cold through March. So we've got another 2 months of I can't believe we're hitting record highs of heat. Florida is hot as fuck. Look, he said must be Florida. Florida is hot as fuck. It is due to the Jewish. No, no, Jews ain't got nothing to do with you know what's causing the extreme climate change, right? They say that it is the result of the lack of ozone layer that we have. So guess what's causing the lack of ozone layer that we have? That's giving us more direct exposure to the sunlight. Aerosol cans. Guess who's using the most aerosol cans? Women with fancy hairdos. So who's hot? Who's the reason why it's hot as fuck outside? All them hot behind chicks that's walking around with nice hairdos that took them 45 minutes and 13 cans of spray to get that updo up. That's the reason why he's there. He gonna blame the Jews. That ain't the Jews. The Jews count your money. The females that be using all them aerosol cans, that's what's got the aerosol cans that goes into the atmosphere. And yeah, your hair look nice today, but it's gonna be 200 degrees tomorrow because of that shit. Now, on these relationships, you're gonna remember that you stop being just a me when you're in a long term relationship, and you start being a us. This is hard to get out of. There is a difference between a level of interdependency and a level of codependency. Your routines, where your friends and your hobbies, they were all shared with your partner. You might still have individual friends, you might still have some individual hobbies, but more than three-quarters of the way your life was run when you're in a long-term relationship revolved around your partner. So when that ends, it can feel like you've lost a piece of yourself, a large piece of yourself, more than half of yourself. They say that your partner is your better half, allegedly. And some people try to mask that by saying, oh, well, you're supposed to walk into the relationship as two whole individuals bettering one another. But you replace half of who you are with the other person when you come together and y'all become one unit. And when you're functioning as a fraction of one unit. When y'all break up, you're now a fraction of a unit. Even if you were a whole self before you walked into this relationship, you are a fraction of a unit when you walk out. And that's what people don't understand. And this is going to feel like you've lost a piece of yourself, leaving you with the terrifying question of who am I now? It's not just about losing a person, it's feeling like losing yourself. A lot of people experience this in your lives. If you were one of the ones that grew up in a family with siblings, and you were either the oldest sibling or the most responsible sibling, and you looked after the rest of the siblings. When everyone else reaches an age where they no longer need you, whether that's 18 or 35, when you stop having to make decisions revolving around making sure that your siblings are taken care of, you no longer know who you are. Because you used to say no because you had to take care of family. You used to say no because you had to be duty bound to being a caretaker. Now you're saying no because you simply don't want to go. And you otherwise would be peer pressured into saying yes if you weren't duty bound to somebody else. Now that you don't have that crutch to that other person, now you have no reason not to go, but you also don't have a reason to go because you don't know if that's what you would have done anyway because your identity was based off of being a caretaker. It's the same thing in breaking up in these relationships. Marshall says, did you know that women marriages have the highest divorce rate and highest domestic violence rates? I just want to flip a table on that real quick, but I can't because my laptop's on it. I want you to understand that I covered that topic about 8 months ago. The lowest conflict in a relationship is a male male relationship. There's still conflict, but there's about 30% of conflict in a male male relationship. There is conflict in every male female relationship, and there is more conflict in a female female relationship than there is in any other kind of relationship. Um, there is women will say, "I want you guys to like and subscribe, ladies. If you don't like it, you cannot like it." But these are statistics. This isn't about bashing y'all. This is about helping y'all get through this stuff. People will say, women will tell me that men are more violent than women, and that's not true. I've talked about this on the show quite a few times. Is that men are socially unaccepted to be violent. So it is reported that men are more violent more often because men are arrested more often when men are violent. When women are violent, whether it is psychological or emotional violence or actual physical violence, it is chalked up as she was emotional, you pissed her off, or you scared her, something to that effect. Her emotions are an excuse for her behavior. But as human beings, if we're supposed to be equal, then that means that he should be able to do the same thing to you when you scared him, when you pissed him off, when he's emotional. But when that happens, you say that a man is abusive. And the thing is that statistically, men do not call the police on women unless their life depends on it, right? Because if she fights him to the fact that he triggers a fight or flight response and he fights back, he goes to jail. They might both go to jail, but he's going to jail. Even if she doesn't go to jail, he goes to jail for hitting her back because he hit her, and men are not allowed to hit women in society. But if a woman hits a man, very rarely does anybody call the police. A lot of times, if a woman hits a man, people will be like, ooh, and that's it. That's it. Nobody jumps on the phone and dials 911. Nobody, tries to jump in there and try to stop her from beating them up. They just let it happen. Everybody stands back and lets it happen. And it's crazy. That- and the it's not. I'm going to be talking about that in, I think, tomorrow's show. Is dating universal? Is it the rules of dating universal? And I can tell you, in that particular circumstance, when it comes down to violence in relationships, it's not universal because women are socially allowed to be more psychologically, emotionally, and physically violent in a relationship than men are. It is not acceptable for men or women to be physically, emotionally, or psychologically violent, but women are allowed to do it more often than men. Then, when it comes down to raising children, statistics show that men are more logical and rational and women are more emotionally abusive. And people don't want to agree to that either because nobody wants to take fault and blame for things. But if you guys remember, most of us that are 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old, some of us in our 30s grew up in single family homes where we lived with our mother. And most of us can think back to a time where we were guilt tripped into doing something just to make our mom stop. We were guilt tripped into doing something just to satisfy the scenario. If you know about a guilt trip playbook from your childhood, that's because emotional manipulation was utilized to raise the children. But children that are raised by fathers are raised with logic and rationale, negotiations and compromise. Let's make a deal. If you do this for me, I'll do this for you. Because that's the only way that men operate. Men operate logistically, women operate emotionally. So this isn't a bash at women. This is just facts. This is facts. He said it wasn't that time of the month. Again, see, see, look at that. He said it was that time of the month. That again, that's another excuse that expresses the volatile behavior when women are pregnant. That's also another excuse. It's the hormones. It's the hormones. But if you punched him, that's assault. Okay, and that's not supposed to slide. But how would you like to be in the mugshot with your baby? Your baby's first photo is at Rikers. That's not how it's supposed to be, but and that's the reason why we allow women to behave the way they behave. It's just it's sick. I'm not trying to change the Western culture about that, but I'm trying to tell you that when we're dealing with breakups and when we're dealing with the emotional distress that we have from breakups, we have to remember that there's a whole lot more that is involved in this, and it's not just the volatility of the women because we got some volatile men out there too. And you got to remember that during this breakup, you have to be kind to yourself. You know, oh man, he hit it. He said, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. I read that whole book right before I found the Kama Sutra book on the shelf at like 7 years old. We have not made it to Mars because if men were on Mars, we would not bring women to Venus because we know better. We would meet them on Earth and never let them see Mars because we know better. She would divorce us and take the whole planet. That's probably why Mars is a barren wasteland now because Venus attacked Mars and now they're after Earth. Oh. Look, your pain is real and it's very valid, and it is rooted in some deep, complicated stuff. So knowing this is the first real step towards healing. So let's talk about how to get through it because this isn't just a bitch fest. We're not just sitting over here whining and complaining. This isn't a group of men that's miserable about our lives because we got better shit to do because we be making money every week on this podcast. You don't give a fuck about nothing else, but I just want to talk about this. So this is your practical plan for the toughest days, right? So young bucks, y'all going through some breakups. These are the ways that y'all can get through some of the toughest days. We're going to be moving from understanding the pain to actively managing it. These steps are your lifeline. They are the absolute negotiables that will build the foundation for your recovery. So think of it as emotional first aid. In a world that loves toxic positivity, right? And I hate toxic anything, but in a world that loves toxic positivity, people will tell you to just get over it or stay busy. Honestly, that's terrible advice in the beginning. The single most important first step is to give yourself radical permission to feel everything. You have to let yourself grieve. Pushing your feelings down doesn't make them disappear, it just lets them fester into an ulcer that will require you to take a lot of what they call that Prolacet to deal with the bleeding ulcer that you develop from stress. You develop cysts from repressing emotional damage. You got to understand this stuff manifests into physical health issues. Wonder why your side been burning for a while because you're repressing stuff instead of letting it go. Your pain is demanding to be felt. So feel it. What does that actually look like? It means letting every emotion show up without judging it. If you're sad, let yourself cry. Crying isn't weakness, even though that's what men were taught. It's your body literally releasing stress hormones. Let it happen. If you've got to do it by yourself, fellas, you can go to a quiet place. You could drive your car to the middle of the woods somewhere and cry in your car. You can don't do anything stupid, but you can go out in the middle of nowhere and let it all out. If you can do it at your house, but if you're in an apartment or if you've got roommates, you don't want other people around to hear, go far away from your normal starting grounds and just let it out. That way, nobody around that would potentially hear you would judge you. If you're angry, find a safe outlet, a safe outlet. Some people do video games, Call of Duty. I've always said Raw versus SmackDown is one of the most effective ways to relieve your stress between that and Fight Night. But the difference between Fight Night and Raw versus SmackDown is that Fight Night, they're only going to take so many punches and that's going to be it. But with Raw versus SmackDown, you can create characters and then you can take it out on that character for 2 to 3 hours, just hitting them with a steel chair, just put them in a no DQ match, fall count anywhere, no submissions, and beat that character's behind. He said Prozac. Prozac don't work, bro. It'll replace things, but it won't fix the problem. Marshall said, I put on sad music and cried on Tuesday, and it was glorious. You know, all of the soul music and love music and stuff like that ends up becoming the same sad music that you listen to when you break up. You listen to that, you let it all out, but you also have to mix in somewhere along the way some upbeat music. You know, you can listen to the Boys to Men and you know the Genuine and Drew Hill and you know those the good ones from back in the day that would really make you just ball in a room, music blaring. But then at some point you're gonna have to put some of that thong on there, and you got to just throw that in there. You gotta go from sleeping in my bed to pimps in the club. You got to go from um Blackstreet. You got to go from Blackstreet to I don't want to be a player. You got to mix in some upbeat and kind of modify your mood because it's not about wallowing in it. It's about facing it, addressing it, accepting it, and then moving through it. So you can make you a playlist. You can have like the first 30, 40, 50 songs of sad stuff. And then you can start every other song having an upbeat song. And then throughout that, you start having more and more upbeat songs. And then by the end of the playlist, it's all upbeat songs. Doesn't have to be songs about causing physical harm to one another, but it's just like, anything that works. Now, Michael says, talk to a friend. We're going to be getting to that one because that's actually very good advice. It's good to talk to a friend. It's better to talk to a stranger. The reason why it's better to talk to a stranger is because you keep your friends close, you keep your enemies closer, and the more vulnerability that you instill in your closest friends, the more ammunition those closest friends have to retaliate against you when you piss them off. Same thing with family. So you have to remember that by talking to a friend, it's good to talk to friends. But when you tell them your deepest, darkest secrets, guess what they have to weaponize against you? Your deepest, darkest secrets. One of the things that manifests as trust in your friendship is that they don't unravel the deepest, darkest secrets. But those deepest, darkest secrets don't get unraveled as long as you don't piss off the other person because we are all human. We all have it in us to take the worst thing about you and say it in front of everybody else because we're hurt about your behavior in this moment. Therefore, the things that you don't want to get out in your network, you go talk about that to a stranger. As a result, therapists work, Catholic priests works as an adult because they're not interested in you. Pastors at the church, they work. Confessionals, they work. You can go sit down and talk to the pastor after the service. You normally don't go to church, but when you break up with somebody, go to the church and go sit there and go talk to the pastor after the service. He said, "Don't do Jimmy." He committed, man. Or like me, go back to fishing. You can go back to fishing as long as you don't throw yourself in. It's 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 one of those things that you guys got to do. You guys got to yeah, it is. It's ammunition against you. So you want to be able to get that out. But we're going to be talking about that in a moment. You know, you can scream in a pillow. You could, I know some guys have punching bags in their garage or in their basement. You can go and release some steam if you go to the gym. If you have a trainer regiment where you guys can like go round for round with the punching bag, not the speed bag, the punching bag, the really big one, and you can just relieve all your stress with that one. You can go for a punishing run, but you don't want to run too far because you're going to be the only person getting yourself back. You can write a furious letter that you never ever send. One of the things that I used to say was get there and write an email. But see, one of write the email, put it all out, then delete it. It takes a lot of willpower to delete that email. But what you could do is you could open up a Word doc. You can write all this stuff down like a Dear Diary Word doc and then close out the window and walk away from it. You can come back to it and add more feelings and more thoughts and more stuff to it, like your own personal journal on your laptop. And then once you've gotten past it, you can go in there and then delete it so that nobody knows what you wrote. But never send it to the person that you're grieving over. Okay. Marshall says, surprisingly, talking to random people on YouTube chats have provided some therapeutic value to me because I don't know anyone in them. And that's exactly why I say talking to a stranger. The anonymity of talking to me on social media, you can tell me what you got to tell me. I'm not going to make fun of you unless you literally come here and tell me that you are ruining your life on purpose and you asking me for help after I've already given you advice 3 other times. I will make fun of you then. But just note that if you come to me for the first time, you're telling me that things aren't going right. I'm gonna help you understand it from both sides of the perspective, but at the same time, I'm gonna try to make you laugh about it so that you can understand that it's not that serious. You will get through it. It is always capable for you to get past it, but you do have to first face it. You will have to communicate, and sometimes when communication is not an option, you will have to let the other person go and move on with your life because your life doesn't stop because somebody else isn't in it. Whether you break up with them, whether you have to fire them, whether you have to divorce them, whether they die on you, whether you kill them, however it works, your life still keeps going until they catch you for that murder. It is what it is. He said $30 still listening. If you put $30 in a collection plate, bro, you need to stop going to Michael Staff's church because if they'll listen for $30, you can send me $30 because I listen every day of the week. I give you 2 to 3 hours a day, 7 days a week on this podcast. So I don't understand why y'all ain't listening. I could use $30 a person on this bad boy. We could pay for the Twitter platform doing that. $30, I'll listen. Um, Giving that anger a voice stops it from turning inward and becoming shame. Here's another thing that you can do. Everybody who lives alone, have a conversation with yourself. They say, "Oh, it's crazy when you talk to yourself." No, it's only crazy when you answer yourself back. You can vent how you feel, the most frustrating steps in your life, if you say what you have to say, and you can say it in the comfort of your own home if you live alone because you broke up with your ex. They moved out, they're no longer there, you don't have a roommate in the house, there are no kids in the house, and you can just sit in the house and talk to yourself, have a whole conversation with yourself. You could do a video call with yourself, like set up one of those cameras, record yourself grieving over what's going on. Then you can go back and play it back later and see how you felt, and you might even laugh at yourself, but you will recognize how far you've come versus where you were if you are doing like a video diary of your feelings throughout this process. But as you talk to the camera, as you talk to yourself in the mirror, you are getting this off of your chest, which relieves that stress. You have to try to create a safe space for your grieving. That's one of the biggest parts about this. Like I said, I save $75 per hour coming here. It's a great therapy. But I talk to you guys. I'm genuine about what I talk about because I come from uniformity. And that's why I tell you guys to like and subscribe throughout the night because I want you guys to learn better ways to be you. I want you guys to find better ways to solve your problems. I want you guys to not waste money on solving your problems so that you have more money to improve your financial standard. And that aids you in having less stress because you're going to have emotional stress from your relationships and then you're going to have psychological stress for your finances. And those two levels of stress can cause you poor health that will cost you more money, which will cost you more stress, and that vicious cycle will continue to dwell until you're dying young. You're dying younger than you should have died. Outload conversations with yourself. Oh yeah, out loud conversations with yourself. That's what not in your head. That's right. So and you know what's funny? You can think of 30 different inconsistent thoughts in your head and never rationalize any of them. But as they project out of your mouth, you will have a linear track of the things that frustrate you the most because those are going to be the things that you're going to repeat over and over and over again, different ways, different scenarios, different what ifs. But your mouth is only going to be able to say one linear track of thoughts. You'll be able to get that off your chest, work through them, and then go on to the next one. Out loud conversations now, not out load, not unloading. You want to reload, but you want to say it out loud. Say it loud. I'm black and out proud. Um, maybe your safe space might be in your bedroom. Maybe it's just a set time each day when you're by yourself. But just tell yourself for the next hour, I'm allowed to be a mess. I can listen to sad songs. I can look at old pictures and just let it hurt. By giving your grief a container, you can honor it without letting it take over your whole life. Now, one of the best tools here is journaling, as I just finished explaining to you. Just get a notebook. You guys now y'all got cell phones, so y'all got that note app that y'all can write on. If you got a laptop or a desktop computer, you can use a Word doc, Google Doc, email, and write down everything that you got going on, just like I explained to you before. Some of y'all, if you've got really good microphones on your computer and you have that dictation app from your Word doc or Google Doc, you can do dictations where it'll write down your thoughts and you can just say them. Talking to the mic, say what you got to say. It'll write the thoughts down for you. Then you can proofread them and it will take your mind and emotion off of what's going on. Don't worry about it being perfect, though. You don't have to edit it. You could just write it down and get it out there and just pouring your brain onto the page, writing about the anger, the sadness, and the confusion, writing about the good memories, the hurts that hurt so much. Journaling will help get the obsessive thoughts out of your head. So the ones that I told you that keep coming back out of your mouth repetitively, which brings that immediate relief. You will find stress levels going down. You'll find yourself being able to breathe. You'll find yourself feeling a lot lighter. You'll find yourself feeling more clear headed. You'll find yourself able to get more rest. And later, you'll be able to look back at everything. Like I told you earlier, just see how far you've come. Like I said, it's important to know the difference between processing and uh, rumination. You don't want to relive the same thing over and over again. You just want to process it. Now, processing is exploring your feelings to understand them. Ruminating is getting stuck on a negative thought loop. Oh, I hate him. He ain't shit. He ain't never helped. He ain't never did this. He ain't never did that. He ain't no good, blah, this, blah, this. That's, you know, ruminating. We don't want to do that. Playing that same painful scene over and over again. But if you catch yourself doing that, your cure to gently shift your focus is acknowledge the thought. There's that memory again, and then consciously do something else. And this is where calling a friend comes in. Go for a walk, or you don't have to fight the thought. Just choose not to uh get it to take over your train of thought. Michael says, you are brainstorming. Well, you're supposed to be brainstorming. But if you're going over the same thought over and over and over again, you're not brainstorming. Now there's a level of psychosis in there when you're rewriting the same phrase a million times. It looks crazy. Think about that. Even if it's not crazy, it is your brain processing a thought, but it's processing a thought on a loop, and that looks crazy. It's going to look crazy to you. So if you're writing down your thoughts and you wrote down the same thought 14 times, especially if it's 14 times in a row, you're like, hold on. I'm thinking about this one too many times. You might have wrote it twice and now you're thinking about it again. You're looking at the paper like, I already wrote this down. I don't need to write it down again. And that's how you're able to process the fact that you don't need to keep thinking about that same thought. You acknowledge it, but you're not going through it again. Now, when you're heartbroken, the most basic things can feel impossible. Some people have issues with eating, sleeping, showering, and this all feels like it's just too much to do. And I'm going to be real with you that's a good feeling, but this is exactly why the fundamentals of self-care become radical acts of self-preservation. Even if you lost your appetite, if you can't remember the last time you ate, eat. If you can't remember what you ate, eat. This way you don't starve yourself to death. If you can't remember the last time, if you're tired but you can't sleep, lay there with your eyes closed until it happens. You can express a lot of your emotional distress while you're in the shower, a hot shower, do a sauna, not too long, but express yourself. Michael says, you're young, you will have several times like these. Nobody likes pain. Emotional pain lasts much longer than physical pain. You are definitely right, Michael. Special shout out to Eric. He has not been here since we started talking about all the stock options that'll put money into Eric's pocket. We even took Eric is the one who gave us BBAI. And then I took Eric's BBAI and I put it into last week's trading portfolio to maximize your gains. Special shout out to Eric because Eric and Michael and these guys, Steven, like these guys are really in here with trading stocks. And while we're not trading stocks, we're talking about emotional development. But Eric says nothing some drinks can't fix. You're right. You can spend a bunch of money to go buy you a few dozen beers. You can spend you a few $100s on buying a few bottles of alcohol, a few bottles of liquor, some scotch, some heavy wine, Everclear, whatever it is. But one of the things that you have to understand, I'm telling you free ways to fix your breakup emotions. You're thinking about what the average American does is spend a bunch of money to get over this. But if you think about every $100 bottle of Patron that you drink to get over this chick, that's how much it costs to break up with this chick. You think about every bottle of scotch. You think about, oh, I'm gonna go to the bar and socialize with other dudes who broke up with their wives, and you're sitting at the bar at $15 a glass plus tip, and you got a $300 bar tab 3 nights a week trying to get over this chick. That's $900 a week trying to get over this chick when I just spent the last hour and 18 minutes telling you different ways that you can go and not spend a dollar and still fix your problem where that $900 a week could have went towards your stock portfolio. So I just want to tell you, while drinking is good, some people can smoke weed, but an ounce of weed is almost $165 in some places. You get you a pound of weed, that's a felony, and that's a few $1,000s. There's no reason why you need to be throwing away that much money to get over an ex. That's my point. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm just saying that it's a waste of fucking money. That person isn't worth it. The person that is no longer in your life right now isn't worth you wasting your money on them. The same way that old saying is that you're not worth the bullet, that ex is not worth the money that you're going to drink away to get over them. So save your money. Let's follow some of these tips that don't cost you a dime. Uh, Michael says, you're stressed out, take a bath. Take a hot bath. Soak in a warm tub. Build you a jacuzzi tub in your house and soak in your jacuzzi tub. He said dozens of hookers. No, that's another bad idea because dozens of hookers, that you got to understand that those girls are typically a few $100s an hour per person. So if you're doing a dozen of them, that's a few $1,000s per hour. Again, with the financially unworthy. Now, yeah, it's a good memory to have. You can get out there like Blue Mountain State and have a bunch of them in the house, but that doesn't change the fact that you just wasted a shit ton of money to get over your ex. Now, you can't heal a wounded heart if your body is running on empty. So you got to get yourself some rest. Now, let's start with the basics of moving on. He said, if that girl costing me 900 per week, we are going to the strip bar. Your girlfriend costing you almost that much when you think about how women cost 41% of a man's income. So if you take the 41% of your income that you was putting on your girlfriend and you go waste it in the strip club, yeah, you can do that. They will replace your emotional attachment to your girlfriend to an unhealthy emotional attachment to a hooker or a stripper or a call girl. I don't recommend it. It's a waste of money because that 41% of your income, if you didn't need it while she was there, while she's not there, because you're not spending it on her anymore, that means that 41% of your income can go towards investments. So if 41% of your income is going on her and you're making $50,000, that's more than $20,000 of your money that's going on her, which means that that's more than $20,000 of your money that could be going into stocks. Yeah, yo, it is. I'm just trying to tell you. I'm just trying to tell you. I'm just trying to tell you. If you putting away 20,000 a year instead of wasting 20,000 a year on women, you're making more money at almost 20% interest. You're making like $4,000 a year off of that money that you're putting away instead of throwing away that $20,000 a year and having to go back out and grind. And the more that you compound that, the longer you're going to find yourself bringing back way more money than what you made. You got to think about that. Now, we're going to try to start by eating nourishing meals, even if you got to get our Fit Chef recipes from some of our Fit Chef videos. Even if you don't have an appetite, go eat something, a smoothie. You can, matter of fact, if you got a blender at the house, you can get creative. You can take bananas, strawberries, some yogurt, and maybe even some coffee and put it into a smoothie in a blender, blend it up, and make you one of those really nifty smoothies that you could get from Smoothie King. And uh, get you a filling, nutritious substitute or a bowl of soup. They got Progresso, Campbell's soup. You can just grab you something, pop the can, put it into the microwave, eat something. Hydrate. Drink you some Gatorade with the electrolytes and replenish yourself. Exercise is the best stress buster. You're right. Get your gym membership, or most of us have one and don't use it. Use your gym membership. If you don't have a gym membership, but you live in an apartment complex that has a gym on campus, use the gym. If you're going to college and there you have access to the fitness center, use the fitness center. Keep a water bottle with you all day long that doesn't have alcohol in it and hydrate. Your body is stressed out and it needs fuel, right? And sleep is when you repair yourself. Just like in a video game, when you go to sleep, that's when it saves past data It processes past data and it starts anew. If you never save your game, if your game crashes, you got to start over from the beginning. Life is the same way. If you don't get enough rest, your short term memory starts to fail and you start having issues with gaps in your short term memory recall. This stress thing is serious. So this is one of the reasons why I talk about it. You will actually start getting concerned about early signs of dementia or Alzheimer's because you will start showing symptoms because your short term memory loss. And when I say short term memory loss, like the last 6 months, is hard to remember because it just happened. Once it hits your long term memory, whenever that happens, any time between last week and like 3 years ago, you can remember everything. But your short term memory loss will mean that you're not going to be able to have that memory recall that you used to have to keep track of things. Now, this is a double-edged sword because if you're stressed out, you're fresh out of a relationship, getting into a new relationship, your memory recall is suffering. You start dating a new chick, you're still stressed out about the old chick. She's going to get pissed off at you because you honestly forgot things that your memory could not sustain because you're still stressed out and you've never fixed the problem. She's going to treat it like you don't care about her because you are going through a mental breakdown with not being able to remember due to high levels of ongoing stress in your life. So, being able to get you some rest, get away from the stress in life is heavily important for you. This is why we're talking about this, y'all. Eric says, and cut off all ties with your ex. Don't answer the phone, no texting or messaging, period. I say every week, do not take your partner, male or female, to your common stomping grounds. Your favorite places to go to have fun, your favorite places to go to get out of the house. You don't bring your partner there. Your partner's lucky if you bring them to your job so that they know where you work. Because if you have a portion of your life as a single man that never is exposed to your current partner. When your current partner becomes your current ex, they will not know where to find you. You have a life you lead when you're in a relationship. You have a life you lead when you're single. Your single life should never be where your dating life is. That old saying, don't don't shit where you eat or don't bury all the bones in the same backyard. All of those things, don't hunt where you sleep. Do not pick up chicks in your common hangout spot. Go to a new location and pick up chicks from the new location. And when you're in a relationship, do not bring your chick to your common hangout spots, your favorite restaurant, your favorite watering hole, none of that stuff. You create new locations for your partner. So if you go to a random club you've never been before, pick up a chick, then you take her to random restaurants you've never been to before, and that becomes your spot with her. Now, y'all break up, you're not going to that spot again. You're going to your old stomping grounds that she's never been to. Y'all don't cross paths again. The ability to fall off the face of the earth when y'all break up only happens when you do not intertwine them into every orifice of your single life. Doesn't mean that you can't build a dating life with them. It just means that your single life cannot be the exact same as your dating life. Meaning, hypothetically, if you was in a mafia and you picked up a chick, you're not taking her with you on all the hits. That doesn't work out. So that when you break up with her, she can rat you out. No, you got stuff that you do that's just you. And when she's there, she don't know about none of that. And then when she's gone, Whatever you didn't tell her, she can't say anything about. Eric says, let's face it, man. Men and women cannot be just friends. That's why the friend zone is a bad spot. Uh, who broke up with whom, him or her? Don't matter. It don't matter. If Eric is right, men and women cannot inherently be friends. When there is no sexual chemistry between the two individuals, that is the likelihood that a buddyship can occur because you're both in the same place at the same time, experiencing the same activity. And that is a level of camaraderie, not necessarily friendship. When emotional bonds come into play, the friendship starts turning into a relationship. It does. Now, when a man is not attracted to the woman or the woman is not attracted to the man in either situation, that's when there is a friendship because one of the two people in the friendship have romantic feelings that they're suppressing and they're not willing to admit that. And usually, when I say that, shortly thereafter, somebody dives into the podcast and tries to justify it and be the one outlier where they've been friends with somebody for 20 years and there's nothing between them. No, there's something there for somebody to want to be your friend of the opposite sex. The only reason why they would not be wanting to be a romantic partner with you is if that's your gay best friend. You're straight, they're not straight, y'all do not have the same interest. That's when a friendship works out. But if you're gay and your best friend is gay, you're still in a situation where your best friend wants a romantic relationship with you, but they're not willing to express their feelings. So even in a homosexual atmosphere, it still is the same dynamic. If y'all are interested in the same type of relationship, but y'all are in a friendship, one of y'all wants more than the other one is willing to provide. So you got to be careful with your friends. Michael says, I assume she broke up with you. Well, usually 70 to 90% of women break up with men. 70% of uneducated women, 90% of educated women break up with men for every reason under the sun, including infidelity. Um, and 10 to 30% of men leave women. But men leave women for only two reasons. Men leave women because of infidelity, and men leave women because they don't like the way they're being treated. And you can also throw in you don't they don't like the way the women are using them for their money, but that's also they don't like the way they're being treated. But sometimes men will take psychological and emotional abuse, physical abuse, because they are taught that they're supposed to man up, and that's the volatility of women's behavior that's common. And those men will put up with the abuse. But if you've already got the psychological, emotional, and sometimes physical abuse, you're not going to take infidelity at the same time. So she starts cheating on you while she's treating you like crap. That's like the final nail in the coffin. But for women, it could be everything. He's not paying you enough attention. He's paying you too much attention. He's not spending enough money. He's wasting too much money. He doesn't work enough. He works too much. Um, he's not attractive. He's too attractive, and you're insecure. He doesn't know how to do it right. He does it too right, too well, too often. You've got complaints all over the place. There isn't a consistency. So no man can say, "Oh, well, I know the playbook on women." No, the fuck you don't. You know how to get them to show up, but you can't. No one knows how to get them to stay. They have to voluntarily stay. You understand? And that's why men spend the largest majority of their relationship convincing the woman to stay, which is why men more often than not don't know what kind of woman they have until they step back and look at the relationship they're in and say, "This is not what I wanted when I started pursuing her." And you can't fix it now because you've already invested in it. She's not willing to change, and now you have to decide to deal with it so that you don't lose out on your investment, accept it for what it is, or abandon ship, start over. Michael says she's not thinking about you. She's dumping you. Sorry, move on. View from a 7-year old crazy guy. But that's the thing though. When the women be walking away, bro, they women emotionally remove themselves from a relationship 6 to 9 months, 3 to 6 months, sometimes 9 months before they actually leave. See what I'm saying? Men might leave spur of the moment, but women typically remove themselves emotionally from the relationship. And you have to understand that men are physical and women are emotional. When a man stops wanting to have sex with his woman, that's when she needs to be concerned because he no longer is physically willing to be in this relationship with her. But when a woman being emotional establishes an emotional attachment with somebody else, you can't see that. You only recognize that she's treating you like shit every day and you don't know why because she has emotionally removed herself from this relationship. Eventually, she will grow the courage, the confidence, the willpower to abandon this relationship when she has the financial security in the other relationship because the emotional attachment is in the other relationship. She may sleep with you, treat you like garbage, but treat that guy like a prince. It will happen. Men and women act differently when it comes down to breakups. So with a man, it'll be sudden change. With a woman, you can't see it. You can't see it. You can't pinpoint it like, oh, she's no longer involved in this relationship, but she's still here every day doing her part. No, you can't see it. So you got to be careful with what you're doing. But when she does come to you and finally says, I want to break up, that is not the conversation to negotiate. Because when she comes to you and says, I want to break up, she has been rationalizing this for half a year. Just go ahead and let it happen, bro. Just go ahead and let it happen. Now, sleep is going to be when you repair yourself, but heartbreak often ruins the sleep. So you want to try to create a calming bedtime routine. No screens an hour before bedtime. Take warm baths. Listen to a sleep meditation video or some sort. If you can't sleep, don't just lie there stressing. Get up, sit in a dim room, and read something boring until you feel tired again. The goal is rest. Even if it's not perfect sleep, get some kind of sleep. Eric says 90% of women who break up with men, it's because of some other guy because they can't be alone. Not all, but most. Well, when it comes to that, Eric, women leave the relationship before they leave the relationship. So the 90% of women that break up with you because they're with another guy is because those women emotionally detached themselves from the relationship with you, started looking into other guys while still dating you. That's why they got those male friends on social media apps, guys slide into their DM. She's going to hang out with a friend, and it turns out to be a guy, and that's dating while she's in a relationship with you. Then she starts spending extra time with this guy, and then it starts spending more one-on-one time with this guy, then long nights with this guy, and then all of a sudden she's breaking up with you because of this guy. The guy is a secret while she's talking to the guy on social media because he's not texting her on the phone directly. Then the guy starts becoming a problem when he starts calling and texting her directly. Now you're asking questions, but she's been talking to this guy for 6 to 9 months. But she emotionally detached from your relationship 2 or 3 months before she started talking to this guy. Then, when she finally does dump you for the other guy, that is the final nail in the coffin for her. That's the closure that she gets, that she's satisfied with the relationship that she's in. There's nothing to salvage in a relationship that she had with you. And now she's going to let you know that the I'm closing the final door. I'm wrapping up the final paragraph of this chapter and I'm moving on with my life. She gets the closure, you don't get the closure because at the drop of a hat, you go from love you, babe, going to work, coming back, we have to talk. There's someone else. I'm leaving. And typically, they have the conversation with you after they've already packed up all of their shit. If they haven't already taken all their stuff out of the house, where they're sitting there with their coat and their purse in hand, and they're having a conversation with you, you already notice some bullshit's happening because they're giving you an intervention. And this intervention style approach to breaking up with you is the way that they rationalize breaking up with you. That's if you have a less toxic woman. If you have a highly volatile toxic woman, that's going to be the woman that's going to come to you and have a fallout, drag out argument where y'all are yelling and cussing and potentially throwing and breaking things, and she storms out, or she convinces you to storm out. And in either situation, that argument is the catalyst to justify the breakup. But she already left before the argument happened. And when you think about that last argument, what the fuck was that argument about? Odds are you're going to think about that last breakup from your last relationship and be like, damn, we didn't really argue about nothing. We were just yelling at each other for no reason. Like, she started yelling at me. I started yelling back. I don't know what we were yelling about. We were throwing up old stuff, but that's all we did out the whole argument was throw up old stuff. And then it was over. When you think about that, that was the reason why, that was the excuse that she was using to break up with you. But tactics are either start a fight and fall apart or have an intervention and fall apart. One way or another, they're walking out of that relationship. You've got the other group of women that will disappear on your ass. You go to work, you work a long shift, they take everything that belongs to them out of the house. They sometimes take a few things of yours to remember you by. They leave, lock the door. You come home from work, half the house is missing. They're not answering their phone, and you never hear from them again. And Michael says she's a black widow. Eric says, exactly. Then you take the early flight from San Diego to surprise her, and there's a guy who's jumping out of the closet, blindfolded from old school. Oh, yeah, man, he over here trying to recite the 12 chapters from the R. Kelly in the closet. That's wild. That's wild. I encourage in your relationships, throughout your relationships, to randomly take an early lunch. Talk to your boss if you've got a long shift. Take an early lunch halfway through your shift. Take your behind home. Drop in on your partner. Give them a hey, hello, I love you, and take your ass back to work. Randomly. Different times out of the day. Different times. And it's not every day. It's not every day because you'll lose your job doing that. But like once a month or twice a month. Like, hey, I forgot something at the house. Can I go get it? Clock out and go get it. Come back. I'll work later to make up for it. Bosses usually don't give a shit. Go ahead, do what you got to do. Come right back. And if you only do that once or twice a month, the bosses are going to complain. If you're one of those overtime employees, the bosses are going to complain. If you're an overtime employee in overtime, he might let you clock out and go home early anyway and let you take the rest of the day off. In either scenario, pop ups, respectful pop ups, not who you with pop ups, not let me smell your hoo hoo pop ups, but come home early, come home unexpectedly, and see what things are like. Most lazy cheaters will cheat in the house that they live in. Most creative cheaters will cheat in a nearby hotel in the same neighborhood of the house that they live in. Most experienced cheaters will go 7 hours to another city, three different cars, different hotel, and make it do what it do. Try not to get caught. But those are experienced cheaters. Rookies, first timers, they typically just have the affair in the house. My husband or my wife is not coming back for another 5 or 6 hours. You show up in 10 minutes. Now, another thing you can do, but this is a trust issue thing. Another thing you can do is purchase yourself some hidden surveillance equipment in your house and put it in places where your partner doesn't know anything about it. And then check your apps and see who's in the house. You can do cameras in the light bulbs, cameras in the wall sockets, cameras in the stuffed toys, cameras in the TV equipment, so that all areas of the house has surveillance on it. And when people are in the house, you can see who's in the house. And that just lets you know that if you're at work and you're looking at this video and you're like, your partner's not doing what they're supposed to do, you're like, you see it. But that's only if they do it at the house. Now, Michael says she calls the cops and you're arrested. Oh yeah, she'll set your ass up, especially if you're living with her. That's like the worst. That's the worst kind of relationship to get into is when you're living with her. Next thing that we're going to be doing, we're going to move your body. This is not about getting a revenge body. because that's what a lot of people do. A lot of people try to get themselves a revenge body by going to sleep with other people. This is about managing your mood. A simple 20-minute walk outside works wonders. If you've got a dog, take your dog for an extra long walk. I know some people who got dogs, they might just go outside and let the dog use the bathroom in the front yard or swing the door open, let them go out in the backyard. After a breakup, you might want to walk your dog all around the neighborhood, right? You might want to walk your dog and have a whole conversation with your dog. That's how you get through it, right? Get you some sunlight. Don't just take your dog out for a walk in the middle of the night. Go out there in the daytime. Go get you some sunlight. Vitamin D is good for you. Get you some fresh air. Most people have their windows closed, been closed so long that the windows are stuck. You have to put some strength into it to open the windows. The windows have been closed so long, the windows are stuck. They're sealed together from paint and dust. And you're used to that central air and heat, and you don't understand that fresh air. You got to open the doors and windows. You got to go outside and get you some fresh air. And then the rhythm of walking can break you out of obsessive thoughts. Yoga is amazing that you can do this. It helps you with calming your nerve system. If you're angry, something intense like kickboxing, this can be a fantastic release. If you got a punching bag, you can do kickboxing or jujitsu with the punching bag. You can learn. Here's a thing which has dual purposes. You can go find you some YouTube videos. I don't have any of those, but you can go find you some YouTube videos and make a playlist of all of the illegal moves in UFC. And then take the time during your breakup to practice learning how to perform all of these illegal moves using your punching bag and your speed bag and other such gym equipment that you've got at your house or at your gym, because it'll help you with self defense. Um, and it's a good stress reliever. And all of the illegal moves in UFC are lethal moves that will be very effective in self defense. Doesn't stop you from having your pistol, but when your pistol jams up or you run out of ammo and you don't have time to reload, being able to throw some punches typically helps. Finally, you have to actively avoid destructive coping mechanisms. It is so tempting to numb the pain with alcohol, the way Eric was talking about earlier, rebound hookups, when they were talking about getting the call girls and stuff, or other compulsive behaviors. They might feel like they're working for a minute, but they are trapped. They're loan you take from your future happiness, and the interest is brutal. The pain will be waiting for you when the numbness wears off, often with a side of shame and regret, because usually when you're out there on a rebound, you're actually sleeping around with chicks that are worse off than the quality of women that you normally would date. Even if you date a toxic five or a six or a seven, you might find yourself involving yourself with twos and threes, where you and then you feel shameful and regretful. If the girls that you sleep around with after you walked away from your ex, you would not show a photo of that chick to your homies and be like, "Oh yeah, I did that." No, no. So you can't be doing that. Make a pact with yourself to face it head on. Choosing water over wine is a profound statement of self worth. And telling yourself, I deserve real healing, not just a temporary escape. You shouldn't and can't do it alone. So heartbreak feels incredibly isolating, and you don't want to allow that to happen. And connection is the only cure for that. Reacting out is reacting out of isolation is a bad thing, but reaching out is a sign of strength, which is definitely not a weakness. You can start with your existing network. Depending on what you're talking about, you can talk with your friends or family, but like I said before, you want to go and talk to strangers because they're better off. because they won't judge you. They won't throw your stuff back up in your face in front of other people because they don't know your network. Start there. But you got to tell them what you need, though. You can't just walk up to some of your homies and be like, hey, let's hang out for a minute. Because people want to help, but they don't know how. And what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to fix your problems by telling you what to do to fix your problems. When a lot of times that's not what you need. So you got to be direct and say, hey, I'm really having a really rough day. Can we just watch a movie? You just want to exist in the same place with somebody with no problem. I don't want to talk. I just don't want to be alone. Be specific. Or I really need to vent. Do you have like 20 minutes or an hour to just listen while I complain? I don't need solutions. I just want to go through a bitch fest real quick and I need somebody to listen to it. Right? Giving people a clear job makes it easier for them to support you. Sometimes friends aren't enough. And this is where that professional help is a game changer. So there is zero shame in seeing therapists because a therapist is a trained, important guide and they're impartial and they can give you the tools that you need to navigate your grief. One of the issues you're going to have with therapists, though, is that they're going to be trying to dig deep into some unresolved issues from your past. And that is one way that they keep their clientele by addressing long unresolved issues, long overdue unresolved issues. But you're going to have to be specific with your therapist too. You get to a therapist and like, this is all I want to go through right now. Eventually, if you ain't got nothing else to go through, you're still seeing this therapist, and some people's health insurance with therapists end up being free. So it's not like you're wasting money on a therapist. But uh, when you're going to see this therapist and you have nothing else to talk about, then you can start dealing with the unresolved psychological and emotional traumas from your deep past that's been repressed. And you might want to do that before you get into your next relationship so that you can be a little bit more prepared for your next relationship. They can help you spot negative patterns and rebuild your self-esteem. But if in order for them to find those negative patterns, they're really going to have to go through your entire past, not just this last relationship. But it's like hiring a personal trainer for your emotions, an investment in your long-term well-being. And you're going to also look into support groups, either online, like this podcast, or in person. Recent research highlights a strong link between social support and personal growth after a breakup. So, talking to people who know exactly what you're feeling instantly makes you feel less alone. When people talk about their worst breakups and everybody's able to hear like some of the shitty things that other people go through, sometimes you might be the worst person in this group that has told a bad story this week. But other times you might be the least negative person in the room. Overall, you will come to find out that no matter how bad things get in your life, it always could have been worse. You realize that your supposed crazy thoughts are totally normal. Now, keep in mind, when it comes down to crazy thoughts, you cannot talk about the thought process of committing a crime or causing harm to somebody else. It doesn't matter if it's a therapist, it doesn't matter if it's a support group, a voluntary support group, because those folks have a legal obligation to report crimes that have been or potentially might be committed. Remember that. If you have a thought process of wanting to cause harm to yourself or somebody else, that can lead you to being hospitalized, if not arrested. So be careful about what you say when you start talking about those crazy thoughts. What you've already done when it comes down to Catholic priests and bishops and stuff to that effect. You might be able to talk about what you've already done and the church not saying nothing about it. But if you start talking about what you might do, they may also say something about it. Now, when it comes down to friends and family, You might be able to tell them more of these incriminating thoughts and they not prosecute you today because they're just thoughts. But if you piss them off, they will rat you out. So keep the crazy thoughts of causing harm to yourself or somebody else on your computer, in an email that you don't send to anybody, in a journal that you write down and don't show to nobody. Because when you start making those projections, you start causing more problems. Now, if you have suicide thoughts, you need to go talk to somebody about that because you don't want to dwell in your own concerns. But when you start having homicidal thoughts, you don't want to talk about that because that does not end well. You'll be in jail and never actually act on your thoughts. So don't go there. I just want to make sure that you know don't go there. But being able to talk about everything else reminds you that millions of people have walked the path and made it to the other side. So going through a breakup is common. It happens in everybody's life, no matter how early you start dating versus how late you start dating. Your first relationship is not always your last one. Your first marriage is not always your last one. And it will get better over time. And this is often the hardest step, but it is the most critical. To heal a wound, you have to stop touching it. This means creating clear boundaries with your ex, as Eric said, and the most effective ones is the no contact rule. No contact means no calls, no texts, no emails, no accidental run ins where you're running into them in public. You want to block their numbers, then delete it out of your contact list. That way, you can't accidentally call them and they cannot contact you. You want to block them on all social media platforms where they cannot reach out to you from their profile. Now, if they're stalking you from other alternate profiles or they're stalking you from their friends' profiles, there's not much you can do besides delete those friends' profiles. If any friend in your friend group that is a mutual friend of yours runs messages to you from your ex, cut them off too. Because when that ex becomes your ex, you make it clear to all of your current friends that you do not want them to talk to you about what your ex has said. Even if these are the same friends where you're talking to them about how you feel about your ex, you do not want those friends to come and tell you any messages or bring any information from your ex. The information wall stops with your friends. Otherwise, you have to distance yourself from any mutual friends that will pass information back and forth between you and your ex. No contact means no contact. This is important because every time you interact, your brain gets a little hit of those addictive chemicals and it resets the withdrawal process. This will also trigger you to force yourself to go try to make contact with them. So if you've got a friend that's telling you, oh, well, she said this about you and she said that about you just recently, and y'all been broke up for a while now, that's going to upset you and make you go out there and try to approach her. Oh, why you're saying X, Y, and Z? It was said to trigger you to go over there and engage. You don't want to go through that. No contact means no contact. You know the restraining orders that you have in the court of law. You are not allowed to make contact with individual. You're not supposed to come within a certain number of feet of the individual, and you're not supposed to have even secondary or tertiary contact where somebody else is communicating to the other person on your behalf. None of that. All of that is forbidden. That's exactly what you got to do here. It's like trying to quit smoking by having just one cigarette a day. It's like quitting smoking, but being in a room full of smokers that are offering you a smoke every day. It's torture and it doesn't work. Going no contact is a detox. It's you're taking back control. This absolutely extends to the social media. So you have to curate your digital world, unfollowing or muting your ex on everything. You block them, you unfollow them, you the whole 9 yards. If you know you'll be tempted to look at them, you got to do something about that. You've got to remove, delete all of their photos. This isn't petty, it's self preservation. Seeing them out having fun or worse with someone new can set you back weeks. In fact, 42% of individuals say social media increases their distress during a breakup, especially if they're talking trash about you. It's like pouring salt on a wound. So remove the temptation. Delete old photos from your phone or hide them in a folder you won't look at. There are sections of your cell phone with passcode restricted folders, secret folders. You can move all of the important photos in your life into that secret folder, and it will not be readily accessible on your phone without a password. You can make that password something that's hard to remember. And if you can't remember that password, you can't open that folder. That's how you put the past behind you. Then, if you don't remember what that folder is, you can essentially dump that folder, which dispels all of the negative information. And please, please, please avoid the let's just be friends trap. Because while it might be possible, way, way down the road, it is too soon. And this is a recipe for disaster to break up, going from being in a committed relationship to being just friends. 5, 10, 20 years down the line, y'all both might be married. Y'all come bumping into one another and y'all decide that y'all can be friendly to one another the same way ex husbands and ex wives can become mutual friends with one another because they divorced when the kids were 5 and 7 and now the kids are 19 and they're able to interact with one another. That might be the case. The kids might be, 8 and 9, and because you still got to take care of these kids for another 10 years, after the first 2 or 3 years of y'all being apart, y'all might be able to start taking care of the kids, cohabitating, and be friendly towards one another for the sake of the kids until the kids are grown. But immediately after the divorce, no contact because it keeps you in a painful limbo, clinging to a hope that prevents you from ever truly letting go. So you need a clean break to grieve the romantic part of your relationship. If friends and friendships is meant to be, it can happen way, way later when you have both fully healed. So setting these boundaries will feel weird and maybe even mean, but you have to remember this isn't about them anymore. This is about you. So every time you enforce these non negotiable expectations for behavior, you're telling yourself, my peace comes first. This is the ultimate act of choosing yourself. Once you've got your survival basics down, the journey starts to shift. So you move from just getting through the day to actually building a new life. And this is where you go from surviving to thriving. It's not about getting back to the old you and experience you like. This is about changing you. It's about meeting the person you are now and creating a future that is all yours. So a huge part of a breakup is disorientation, that loss of identity. For a long time, you were a we. Now you're a me again. And it's time to get reacquainted. So start by reconnecting with the parts of you that got pushed aside during the relationship when you went from being one whole individual into part of a unit. Ask yourself, what did I love doing before I met them? What hobbies made me happy? And maybe it was painting, hiking, playing guitar, or just getting lost in books or getting top highest score on video games, whatever it was. Go get that. Pick one thing and bring it back into your life this week. These small acts help you remember the person you were before and the person you still are now. This is also the perfect time to try something new. Always wanted to take a pottery class or learn a new language or try martial arts, like I finished telling you. Do that now. Trying new things creates new pathways in your brain, helping to break old thought patterns. It also introduces you to new people and places that have zero connection to your past, allowing you to build a new story that's all about your own, which is one of the reasons why I told you don't take your girlfriends to your old watering hole. Build new locations in your relationship. Don't go back to those locations after your relationship. If you get into a new location or a new relationship, you're finding even newer locations. So you never take your girlfriend to the same restaurant that you took your other girlfriend. If you find a favorite spot, that's your favorite spot. You go there by yourself. If you go there with your homeboys, that's your spot with you and your homeboys. Your girlfriend never goes to that spot. You go somewhere else. When you break up with her, you find a third location for the second girlfriend, and so forth and so forth. Always building a new story where you're not talking to the waitress about the fifth girl you brought here this week. You want your past to stay in your past, where your past does not negatively impact your present, where your present will negatively impact your future. When you feel ready, take some time to reflect on what the relationship taught you. Learn from your mistakes, whether there's things that you allowed to happen, things you didn't do, or things that you should not have done. This isn't about blame, it's about growth. Journal about it. What did you learn about your own needs? What were the good things you'd want again? What were the red flags you now see more clearly? Seeing the breakup as a lesson, not a failure, transforms it from a source of shame into a source of wisdom. We've had a lot of people come to this channel and say, "Oh yeah, you've got to be married and in a long-term relationship to get relationship advice." But I can tell you that an addict can give you the best advice about how to not get addicted, why it is not a good idea to do this. A, um, a criminal can tell you the best ways to not get caught or to not perform certain actions because you will get caught and the consequences you don't want to go through. A person that has cheated can tell you ways to not cheat and why it is not a good idea to cheat on somebody. They can also give you signs as to how you can tell that your partner is cheating. A person that has been broken up with multiple times can give the best advice about not breaking up, how to deal with a breakup, and how to maintain long lasting relationships. A person in a long lasting relationship may, a single relationship over the course of 40 years, they can give you the advice on how to maintain a 40-year-old marriage, but they cannot give you advice on how to deal with breaking up and getting with a new person because they have never done it. Somebody who's been involved with multiple breakups can give you the best advice about breakups. Somebody that's been involved with multiple different new relationships can give you advice about new relationships, relationships that they allow to fail. They can tell you to do the exact opposite of what they did to cause their relationship to fail, and that should help you with succeeding in your relationship. So people can say, well, you're not credited because you're not in it. You're not credited because you don't know. No, the people who have been through bad relationships know more about relationships than people who have been in good ones. You learn more from failure than you do from success. And every failed relationship is a learning experience, which means that if you've had a lot of learning experiences, you've got a lot more knowledge on your plate than those individuals just starting out. Throughout all of this, make sure that you also practice self compassion. Healing is not a straight line. You will have good days, you will have bad days, and on the hard days, you want to treat yourself like you would treat a good friend. Instead of thinking, I should be over this by today, try, this is a weave of sadness. We're gonna deal with this one day at a time. You're gonna let yourself know that it's okay to experience a wave of emotional distress, and then you're gonna also remind yourself that it will pass. Heartbreak is a universal human experience, so you're not alone in this, even if you're the only person experiencing it right now in your social group. Sometimes you're not the only person experiencing it in your social group. You might just be the first person to say something about it. Then you come to find out that all of y'all are going through some shit at the same time. You have a very strong social group at that point. But while the basics are essential, sometimes you can speed up healing by getting a little creative. So these strategies are about finding fun, personal ways to process everything and mark your transition to a new chapter. First, make a breakup playlist, plural, more than one. You need a wallowing playlist with all the saddest songs for a good cry. You need an anger playlist with powerful anthems to blast while you work out. And most importantly, you need an empowerment playlist that's filled with songs that make you feel like you can take on the world. Using music this way will let you honor your feelings while gently guiding yourself towards hope. Next, write a goodbye letter to your ex that will never be sent. Pour everything into it. Tell them what you love about them. Tell them that you love them. Tell them that you will miss them. Then tell them how they hurt you. Be brutally honest. Then write about what you forgive them for. Not for them, but for you. So you can release that burden. Don't send it to them though, but document it all. And then finally write about what you forgive yourself for. For mistakes you made, for red flags you ignored. When you are done, perform a little ritual. And this is why writing it down on a piece of paper is going to work as opposed to typing this goodbye letter on a computer. You want to burn it, tear it up, bury it. Not in that order. Start off by tearing it up, then burn it, then bury it. Symbolically let it go, but physically have a bonfire in a controlled environment. Try expressive art. Even if you're not an artist, even if you suck at painting, smear paint on a canvas that represents your feelings. Get some clay and just pound on it. Put on music and dance like a maniac in your living room. These nonverbal outlets can release emotions that are too deep for words. Uh, he said, "Nah, just say goodbye. Don't drama." Special shout out to Dunway. He says, "Just say goodbye." Eh, sometimes when you break up with somebody, you can't just hit them with a simple goodbye. Sometimes you gotta pass. You gotta let it go. You gotta go through the motions to let it go. And when that happens, it's a lot harder than you think. If you guys can travel though, doesn't have to be a big trip. It could be a day trip to a nearby town or a weekend camping. You could go to a spa that you've never been able to go to before. You could take a weekend cruise. You can. It doesn't have to be expensive. Matter of fact, you can leave your house to go spend the night at a nice hotel in a different neighborhood. Changing your scenery is a powerful way to change your mindset, especially if you got one of those bed and breakfasts. It removes you from places filled with memories and gives you a fresh perspective. Navigating a new place alone is also a huge confidence boost. Finally, you can also consider volunteering. So when you're stuck in your own head, helping someone else get through their own shit is one of the fastest ways out. Volunteering at an animal shelter or a food bank, especially an animal shelter, because dogs like hugs, and so do cats. So you can go volunteer at an animal shelter and get all the hugs that you need. Probably adopt you a dog if you don't already have one. Adopt you a second dog if you do have one. These acts of service shift your focus from your own losses to a sense of purpose and connection. So it's a power that reminds you that you still have so much to offer the world. This final step is about pulling everything together and looking forward is going to be the outcome. It's about shifting from seeing the breakup as a tragic ending to seeing it as a powerful beginning. This is about cultivating a growth mindset. The key is to reframe the story that you tell yourself. The victim story says, my life is over. I'll never find love again. That keeps you stuck. The growth story is, this was incredibly painful, but it's a change for me to build a life that's even more authentic. Studies have found that while post traumatic growth can feel illusionary, reframing the experience is a key component of moving forward positively. Most people utilize post-traumatic growth in a toxic fashion by blaming their failures or their negative experiences on someone else and then trying to move forward as the victim of circumstance. You cannot grow by accepting the mentality of being the victim of circumstance, because there is a difference between being a victim and being a survivor. Survivors thrive, victims exist. Okay. When you catch yourself thinking, I'm so lonely, try reframing it to, now I have the freedom to build deeper friendships and a better relationship with myself. It feels weird at first, but you're literally rewiring your brain to see possibility instead of just pain. Use visualizations. Every day, take a few minutes to imagine your future self. See yourself a year from now, happy, confident, and thriving. You don't necessarily have to be in a relationship. You just have to be happy, confident, and thriving. What are you doing in that thought? How do you feel in that thought? The this feeling of peace and joy is going to be the motivation that you're going to utilize to move forward. This isn't magic. It's mental rehearsal. You're giving your brain a clear target to aim for. Finally, anchor this new mindset with a daily gratitude practice. Heartbreak makes you focus on what's gone. Gratitude forces you to see what's still here. Every night, write down three specific things you're grateful for. It could be the taste of my coffee this morning, a funny text from my friend, or the feeling of the sun on my face. Over time, this practice trains your brain to scan for the good, building resilience and hope. The road through heartbreak is a winding one. There will be good days and bad days. Be patient with yourself. Every step you take, no matter how small, is progress. The pain you're feeling right now is not your final destination. It's a temporary, even brutal, difficult part of your story, but it is not the end of your story. You have a strength inside of you that you might not even recognize yet. And this experience, as awful as it is, holds a gift, the chance to pause, go inward, and build a life that is truly and completely yours. You won't just survive this. In fact, research shows that about 58% of people feel more independent after a breakup. You have the chance to come out of this with a deeper understanding of yourself, a clean version for your future, and a great capacity for love than ever before. This ending is making way for a beautiful new beginning. So you've got this. And remember, you are not on this path alone because you guys got me. The comment section below can be a place for the connection if you feel up to it. Share one small kind thing you're going to do for yourself this week. Let's build a community that lifts each other up. Now, I want you guys to remember we've got more of these episodes coming up for the rest of the week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we're talking about how to improve things for yourself. Sunday is going to be questions and comments from the fans. We're going to be getting those things posted up coming soon. Ladies, I'm going to say, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I want you guys to understand that this is a 72% male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, and I give you guys this information to help y'all become higher value men. But ladies, y'all can learn from this information as well. Y'all can use this information to make yourselves higher value women. This information is not gender exclusive. Make sure that you guys take the time to like and subscribe. If you see that some of this information that you can use or somebody that you know can use this information, share this information with somebody else. With that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow night.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command.